all the notification things. I'll probably start Spreaker 2 Live. If you catch this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday night, December 19th, 2019. If you're listening any other time than just before 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, 9 Eastern, it means you are you caught the recorded version, and congratulations for doing that. That's actually kind of hard to do. But if you did do it, just hang tight. Dave and I will get started here in just a few minutes. Actually, we're going to banter for a little bit, so you can fast forward if you want. That's fine. If you're listening live and you're on our live page, and I saw a few of you out there earlier, you can just make sure you're at the YouTube link. So that's right above the video window, right over here. And there's a chat room. We'd love to have you check in on the chat room and ask us questions live. And I see Joe out there. I know Ken will be out there in a few minutes as well. Appreciate you guys coming out this evening, and welcome. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Okay, let's get the notes over. So did you get so you took the day off. Did you get any time to take time off, or did you spend all day on conference calls?
No, the only thing because everyone had an hour in between the call. And so I would basically get done and think, oh, I could do this now. And I'm like, no, I got to be back in here at the desk. So the only thing I did that was cool for the second day in a row is I got up early and exercised in the morning.
Oh, good.
Which is not easy for me to do. It's funny because I get up at 6, so I'm on the bike by 7. It takes me an hour to kind of get up, get a glass of water, and then once I'm on, I'm fine. So I've realized that today. I'm like, I just need to suck it up and hop on and go to town.
Since I started using Peloton, I actually look forward to I'm like, oh, today's a cycle day.
Yeah.
And there's a couple, there's I think Peloton is the podcasting of fitness, but there's a guy in particular, Dennis, that I kind of like. And so it's changed. I kind of look forward to the 45 minutes I'm going to be on the bike as opposed to dreading it.
That's me. I found this cool hippie chick.
Oh, good. Good.
I forget her, Nadine something, but she's from California. And you're not using Peloton. I'm using iFit, which, by the way, is a train wreck. The when you get the stuff, it's great. Yeah. You can log into iFit and you have the thing where the calendar, and they have this cool thing where they'll add videos, like a series of videos, and you can say, add this to my calendar, and you can go in and say, I want to exercise on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and automatically schedule it for you. But it's something that's been around for a while, and there's a lot of old stuff that just needs to go out behind the barn. So, and then I found today that I scheduled a bunch of stuff that went into my January calendar, but at least on the website, I can't go to the January calendar to rearrange stuff and drag and drop the way I want it. So it's kind of this is pretty cool, but the implementation is very beta-ish at times. So,
and they're trying to keep up with Peloton, right? As far as issuing equipment, and then they have a ecosystem that you connect to. And
they did just add one thing, which is different now when I ride, it pops up this thing, and because it's tracking how fast you did this, so you can actually say, show me men that are in their 50s and show me where I am compared to how they did. So I'm not live against them, but it's one of those where you're like, okay, I can see I'm in the top 10. That's why I'm sweating. So.
Well, that's good. I think that comparison is good. It gives you a feel for where you're at. I'd like to see, and what I was doing before I started doing Peloton was I was just watching YouTube videos of people who were riding, and you get to see some really cool places that way. And I'd love to see, some services where you could say, hey, I want to ride the pier in San Francisco, and I want to go, and it would put it together for you. I don't know why we can't do that.
See, that's the cool thing that's the one thing that iFit really has. With whatever hippie chick is, she has a bunch of videos where she's riding out in Utah. And I'm like, I was just there. I remember seeing that.
Right.
And what's cool about it is if you go up a hill, the bike actually inclines. And if it gets harder to pedal. So you kind of feel like you're pedaling live. And I found out today that there's a fan on the front of the monitor. And if you actually really start to just kill yourself, the fan automatically gets faster. And I'm like, that's a nice feature.
Oh, nice.
So it's got some definite.
What was the retail on that?
It goes for about, there's a couple different versions. I got the cheaper version. There's one that's like $2,000, and this one is
so it's
like
price point.
Yeah, and this, but the one I got was like, it was like 1,200, I think, on sale.
Okay,
and it's got a little smaller monitor, and I'm like, I'm going to be 3 feet from it. I don't really need.
Yeah, I need a big one. I use my phone. I mean, I just whatever that is, 4.5 or 5, whatever that is. Ken says, "Whoa, Dave, looking slim." So
not really. I'm down 6 pounds. I think
that's the right direction, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, although I did the ham and 3 dinner rolls, green beans. I had Christmas a couple days ago and stepped on the scale and was like, "Hey, look, 2 pounds are back."
It's one day.
Yeah,
like, you can. Yeah, if you eat that way every day or drink like this every day, then you're.
Yeah, so that's it. The next day I got up and I'm like, okay, we're going to do protein drinks a lot for the next couple days.
Yeah.
Skip a couple meals, ride a little bike, and it's dropping off. So
yeah, you can. What I have found is the more repetition you get in, the more muscle mass you build. The faster when you string a couple weeks together, you'll drop a bunch. Now, there was a big report that came out today, and I think this is no secret. Diet is the key, not exercise. You can kill yourself, but if you're consuming 5,000 calories a day, it doesn't really matter like how hard you work out.
Yeah. So, is that the one that said 50% of adults will be obese? Yeah. Yeah.
I just saw the headline on the Good Morning America or one of those things this morning.
That was the thing, because that's what I did.
90% food. Like losing weight is 90% nutrition and 10% working out. But that being said, working out really good for you. Like it just makes you feel better. I crave candy less when I'm working out than when I'm not. Like when I'm not working out, I'm just crushing it at work. Like we have candy everywhere. But when I'm working out, not so much.
Yeah. There's a great I think it's still on YouTube. There was a video called Pizza versus Treadmill. And there are 2 guys. So one guy's super fit, gets on this treadmill, and it's just like running like, I don't know, 8 miles an hour. He's just like almost on the verge of falling down, just crushing it. And there's a guy sitting there with this big slice of pizza. And so they both go. So the guy starts running, the guy starts eating, just jamming this pizza in his face. And they get done. And the minute the guy gets done with the pizza, they go, stop. And they like, okay, how many calories did you burn? And it was like, 48 or something like that. 20, and it's 25. like, how many calories did you eat? 227. They're like, there you go. That's why it's like, so
you got to do both, I think. And I tend, because I can't control my eating, but I can really work out really. I'm an extreme on both sides. I extreme eat and I extreme work out. And so it just it's frustrating. If I just get my act together eating, I could.
Yeah. The thing I realized today that's going to be potentially a problem. I don't know about you. Well, right now I think it's 11 outside. It's cold.
Yeah.
Is when you eat fresh stuff all the time, you have to go to the store all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like,
HelloFresh, my friend. HelloFresh, they deliver it too.
But I'm talking like bananas and apples and pears.
I know.
Like that. I'm like, can I get that delivered? Maybe that'll be the thing. Maybe I'll just start having.
I bet you could. I bet your local grocery store's got an app, and I bet for a small price you can have them deliver it.
Yeah, give me a bunch of bananas, some apples, some pears, bag of celery. I'm good to go.
We just did an order. Baker's, our grocery store that's close by. Pull in, you call them. You're like, I'm in stall 2, and you push the button. Back it goes up, and they load it up for you. You're out. Like it's pretty great. I mean, it's that piece. The delivery's they'll deliver. It's a little more expensive if you do it that way, but. All right. Well, this is weird. I'm on this side.
Yeah.
On this side, and you're on that side, as opposed to our Saturday morning routine. So this will be fun. Okay. I have a little longer intro than we do on Ask Podcast Coach. So just hang tight, and then I'll introduce you. Ken, Michael, and Joe, welcome. There's a couple more of you out there. I see 7 watching. Jump in the chat room. Just let me know you're there. I can't see you unless you do that. So we appreciate you guys coming out. And let's see. I think we're all set. Okay. Let me do this. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 427, recorded on December 19th, 2019. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a very chilly Bellevue, Nebraska. posts a show with world-class show notes you might want to get out there this week. We'll have a few for you out at theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget, you can also join us live on the mobile app, probably best way to listen live and on the road, Android and iPhone alike. You can get that for free. I make it available for you. Actually, our Patreon subscribers do. HomeGadgetGeeks.com is the way to get that done. And we appreciate those who sponsor the show. I just was going through some Patreon stuff, and Dave, maybe we'll talk a little bit about Patreon tonight in what we're chatting about. But I always appreciate our subscribers when they do that, and that helps pay for the bill every year when we pay for that. HomeGadgetGeeks.com gets it done. Join us in our Discord group and a little more conversation out there, theaverageguy.tv/Discord, as well as on Facebook, theaverageguy.tv/Facebook. Big thanks to Aaron Lawrence, who joined us last week. Some good conversations, some van life, some iRobot, some Google Home stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight as well, and a little bit of follow-up. And so, Aaron, thanks for coming on. She always does a great job. Dave Jackson is with us tonight. Dave, it's been a while, I think, since you've been on my show. I mean, we get together every Saturday, but welcome to Home Gadget Geeks.
Glad to be here, man. It's what's the word here? It's comfortable and yet uncomfortable at the same time.
Well, so for my listeners who don't probably come out on Saturday mornings, many of them don't, but Dave and I have been podcasting for 5 years, nearly every Saturday morning. There's some that I have to miss, but Dave's terribly consistent out at askthepodcastcoach.com. So if you ever need so our listeners out there, Dave, call it their Saturday morning cartoons, right? It's kind of you and I vamping on about podcasting. And you might be wondering, you're like, oh, Dave's on, all Jim's going to talk about is podcasting. Well, there'll be some podcasting, but we actually have some great topics that are around it. What I tried to do, since I have Dave on tonight, what I tried to do is think about all the things we've learned about podcasting and then applying them to other things. So hang with us for tonight. Appreciate that. Dave, great to have you on. Our roles are reversed. Typically, like, that's your show on Saturday mornings, and I just get to come and goof around. Now, tonight, I have to keep the conversation going. It's got to feel pretty good to be in the guest chair, right?
It is. And if I want to turn around and mute my woman in the tube, I can, because you're going to talk for a while, and I'm like, I should probably do that because the A word might be muttered tonight. So we'll see. Yeah,
Dave is right. This may be a show where you just want to go ahead and mute. I'm going to mute mine, and you might want to mute it later on in the show. We're going to talk a little bit about the Amazon and Google devices. So if you have them nearby, you're listening to the recorder, you're listening live, whatever, you just might want to mute those during the show. I hear we set those things off all the time. Although mine has been pretty good. I've been listening to some things where they've set it and it detects it, the ring goes for a second and then it just drops it. So I think they're getting better maybe at knowing who's talking and who's not. Does yours get set off? Do you listen to podcasts?
No, what I usually do is I will Bluetooth my phone and use it as a speaker, basically, which is hilarious because then on my Apple Watch, Overcast comes up so I can pause it on my watch, but I'm listening to it on the speaker. I did have a fun experience where I had gone out of town and came back, and apparently the power had gone on and off, and for whatever reason the internet didn't quite connect the way it was supposed to. And I walked in and told her to turn on the living room and she said, I'm having problems connecting. And I was like, oh no, like everything. I was like, I actually had to go and flip a switch. I was like, what is this, the 1800s? I have to flip a switch? Holy cow.
It is kind of the drawback as we think about these smart speakers. It is the big drawback to getting totally dependent upon them, whether it's, in my case, turning on my studio lights that are here, or getting notifications from Amazon, or setting timers up in the kitchen. And I find, or turning the lights on in general, we have probably half a dozen lights set in our house using the speaker. And you're right. If you lose your internet connection, you're kind of screwed. Yeah. We interviewed a company called Habitat, and their goal is to attach them to devices that actually will help you control them, even if it doesn't have internet. So, there are some things coming up in the market that are kind of realizing, hey, you lose, like in your case, if you lose power, think about if you had your door locks on that, if you had what happens if it goes down and your Nest thermostat is on that, and it's because you're in Ohio, it's pretty cold right now. What would happen if your internet went down and then the heater didn't come on, right?
Yeah. That's a good question. Like, is there a way to override that when it's? That's a good question.
Well, that's I think the dilemma we have when we're going all these smart devices. A little bit later in the show, we're going to kind of talk about consuming audio on these devices, but I think it's a great topic when we think about the complications of now having to always be connected, and what if that connection is down for whatever reason. I have all of my networking equipment is on its own UPS, so I have a dedicated battery backup just for that reason, just so if there's a brownout or we lose power temporarily, I can actually probably run my network because it's all low power. I could probably run it for an hour without power. It would probably stay on, right? But it not everybody has that capability. You plug your garage door. Now, and actually today, if your power's out, you can't use your garage door.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. But I think you got to think about those scenarios, right? You got to think about, could I get in? When Dave, if you were thinking about a door lock for your house and you were going to get a smart one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you insist on also making sure it has a manual way of getting in as well? Or would you be comfortable with it being completely kind of smart, doing it via an app or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question because I've really got one door. I mean, I have sliding doors, but trust me, I've locked myself out of my apartment and you can't get in the sliding doors. So I'd be out of luck. If that thing went down, I would be like, and that is a good question because not only getting in, but it's the other one. What if all of a sudden you got to get to work and, you're calling your boss, you're like, sorry, can't make it to work. I can't get out of my apartment. It's like, it's not going to go over real well.
Yeah. Chris Nessie's out in the chat room. He says you definitely need a backup solution. And I think when you're thinking about that, and let me do a follow-up question. I'm in a house, you're in an apartment, you don't own the place.
Right.
Are you hesitant to put in smart stuff because it's not your place?
Yeah, because I've thought about doing the thermostat. I thought that would be cool to just be able to say, because what I do now is I'm doing something different this year. Because I usually most of the time I'm in this room. I'm either here or I'm sleeping or riding an exercise bike. I'm rarely downstairs, and I'm like, why am I heating the whole apartment? This is dumb. So I have my thermostat set to like 65, and what I do is I have another smart plug in my living room, and I call my heater Sparky. And I if I'm going to go eat lunch about a half hour before I go down there, I'm like, hey, woman in the tube, turn on Sparky. So I go down and it's 70 degrees in the living room. And when I'm done, so I don't know if I'm going to save any money on electricity or not, because it's just a little bit. I mean, my apartment's not huge by any means, but I always like, instead of heating the whole place, why don't I just heat the room I'm in? Because this office is not big at all. And it's probably like a balmy 78 in here now, because between all just the fan from the computer, I'm surprised how if you have the door locked and there's things like that. So I'm trying that right now. We'll see if that saves me any on the electric bill. When
did you get a Nest? Is that what
I did not? And that's why, because I'm like, I'd have to save the old one because when I leave, you want to take it with you. So there's but that would be one I would be tempted to. I had a smart. This is before, but it was supposed to be an automated thermostat when I had a house. And I was really surprised that, because I said, like, look, we'd like it to be, whatever, 68 when we get home at 5:00. And then we would say we leave at 7:30 in the morning because we go to work. And I was surprised when I had the day off that it still kicked the furnace on. And I'm like, why is it like we're nowhere? It's 11 o'clock in the morning. You should not be turning the heat on. So it wasn't quite as smart as I thought it was, because I thought it would like let it get really chilly during the day. And then about 3:00, look up and go, hey, they're going to be home in 2 hours. You better kick it back on. And that's not the way that thing works.
Yeah, and I think there's probably some math depending upon the weather. It doesn't pay off to let things get too cold, right? There's thermal dynamics start to kick in, and if your walls start to get cold, it takes a lot of forced air to heat those up, right? If you're in a forced air system, and so there's not a lot of value in letting things get cold, especially if you got to heat them up in an hour or two. It may pay to just kind of
keep everything
in the furnace, every so often, to kind of keep things at a rate that may be more appropriate. Emily checked in. She said, "What? It's Saturday morning already?" Yeah, a little bit. Emily, welcome. Glad to see we've pulled some of the Saturday morning listeners over as well. Today I was on a big conference call, and there was a bunch of folks on there, and it kind of reminded me we are getting, and Dave, you work from home for Lipson, right? And so you're doing tech support, you're doing all the things that you do. You have to do company meetings. Do you use, when you have to call in, I'm assuming when Lipson does conference calls, one, do they require video? And two, do you use your podcasting gear when you do the calls?
Yeah, I do use my podcasting gear, and thank God they do not want video, because there are times when you roll out of bed and you've still, I'll take a shower at lunchtime or whatever. So it's like I'm not looking great around 10:30 when we typically have meetings and things like that. But yeah, I do. And it's funny because today I had a bunch, I was off today, and I ended up scheduling a bunch of interviews and such. And it was funny because I was on one podcast, and the minute I popped on, she's like, "Oh, that is so nice." And I go, "What?" And she goes, "You sound so good." And I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "No, you don't understand." She goes, "I'm used to people using their built-in laptop or whatever it is." And she goes, she's like, "Oh, you just sound great." And I'm like,
yeah.
"What?" So.
Yeah, one of my co-hosts, Ed Gallup, that's on with me every month. He does a monthly podcast with me, and a sprinkle of other times as well. But he one day he just asked me, he's like, "Hey, can I have a mic too? Like, can I just have one?" And so I sent him a mic and an arm and said, "Yeah." And he tells me all the time he does calls all over as well, and he gets that same feedback. People are like, "Oh, you sound so good." And I'm actually kind of say, I think for at-home workers, like, I think the best possible setup for them is what podcasters are doing today. In other words, I don't think it's just enough to call from your laptop. When I was in London a couple weeks ago, I did a call from the hotel room, and I had packed all of our podcasting gear up already and had left it. It was Friday afternoon. Friday evening, I was doing these calls, and I didn't have any podcasting gear with me. I know that sounds kind of weird. I packed the mic up. So I was coming up my laptop, and they were like, "Oh man, I like the video's good, but that audio is terrible."
Yeah.
And they're so used to hearing me. Everything I do at work, I do on almost all this or a set of really nice Plantronic, headset that goes on that we get really good sound out of. And Dave, I get a feeling like, I think personally, if you're going to work from home, I think it's really important to get the best audio that you can. And I don't think it has to be terribly expensive to do it. We are podcasters, so we end up with expensive equipment. You're running right now through a Rode Procaster, right?
Yeah.
Procaster Pro.
Yeah.
And it's just about a $600 mixer of sort, right? It takes phone calls, Bluetooth enabled, sound effects on it. I mean, you can do the buzzer, if you want to. Perfect. We use those on Saturday mornings, by the way. If you ever want to join us, askthepodcastcoach.com/live. And but I don't think you have to necessarily go that route, right?
No.
You like the Rodecaster Pro. It's a great podcasting device, but you don't have to go that route, right?
No, not at all. I mean, the only reason it's here is because of Saturday morning. It's great on Saturday morning, makes things really easy. And this is one of those units that kind of, no matter what comes up, it'll handle it. So if somebody goes, "Oh, I can't, I'm not on a computer, I need to connect via a phone," I can easily tie my cell phone into this thing. If for some reason it just really does, if I have a bunch of people show up, but it's overkill. If I'm just working from home and I want to have a decent audio, because I'm with you. I once a week I call into the Lipson office for a service meeting, and there's probably 5 or 6 people around a conference call with one of those kind of a triangle looking thing. And for some people that are sitting right in front of it, it's not that bad, but there's always the one guy and it's like, I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't know what he said, but I hope it wasn't important.
I know. So I kind of want to get microphones in front of
that's
all.
That's me. I'm like, can't you guys just all fire up a microphone from your computer at your desk, and we'll all just connect on, whatever. You can connect. You can do calls on Slack if you wanted to. Yeah, and we're using some sort of conference call thing on, and I'm like, we're using the phone. I'm like, ugh. On occasion, we will use GoToMeeting if we're sharing screens or something like that. But a lot of times it's just a phone.
All of them take some kind of USB interface. You could take a step down from the Rodecaster Pro and maybe move to a mixer. This is 6 or 7 years ago, this is what we all did, right? And many of the mixers, the Mackie, the Behringer, the Yamahas, they all came out with USB interfaces to make it easier. And we're talking anywhere from $100 to $400, depending on how many channels. The more channels you get, the better. I'm currently running through a Mackie mixer, and when I make calls when I'm home and I do work calls, I run it through that too. I've got the setup to get it done. In fact, it's funny. I do require, when I'm going to be on a conference call and video is available, I tell everybody, get on video. I don't care if you look. I don't care if you didn't shower. I want to see your face. Like get on the video, right? I think it's important.
It's just another form of communication. I still think it's really odd that in going on 2020, we will, in some cases, send text messages back and forth to where we will actually hit a button, talk into the phone, so it will then transcribe what we said to then send it to somebody instead of just talking on the phone. And now I'm like, when I was married, my stepson and his sister would occasionally get on FaceTime together, and I was like, why wouldn't you? It's just another form of communication. And plus you can kind of tell when I'm done talking,
right?
There's just all sorts of other clues. And boy, in a business setting, a visual can add a lot to the conversation, especially if you're talking business and you're like, are you kidding about that? Well, you can tell if you can see their face, but you can't if it's just tone of voice.
It keeps them from checking email and doing other things.
That's true.
I was in a meeting today. I hope none of my coworkers are listening. I was in a meeting this afternoon. And I was in a room with 6 people, and I was giving an update. So the meeting organizer had asked me, like, hey, could you give us an update on London? So I was telling the room about London, and I could barely hear myself over all the typing on the keyboards. And at one point, I kind of want to say, do you guys even care? Like, should I just stop? And listen, I've been guilty of this myself, where I've been in meetings and other things are going on, and I'm needing to send emails out, and people give me a funny look. So, I don't, if he who throws stones should not live in a glass house, something like that. So I try not to say those kinds of things, but the people in the room were being super noisy, and like they were I was talking like in the room. One of the things I think, Dave, that is for people who do work from home, and you could go with an easy, Plantronics has some great headsets now that cost anywhere from $75 to $150. You can go Bluetooth if you want. Their Bluetooth one has 0 latency, by the way, which is really, really, really good. Or you could do what we've done and go USB through microphones. One of the things I want to talk about is there are some pretty good USB interfaces for folks. So you are working from home and maybe you want to use a mic and some earbuds. Dave, I just most recently bought the Behringer audio interface. It's both XLR and TRS, which means you can get a phone thing into it and you can get a XLR connection piece on it, which is super cool. It has a headphone monitor out. Now, I don't know about you, but the other thing, since I started podcasting, I have a hard time doing calls where I don't have earbuds in. Like, I want to hear the sound right now, not coming from a speaker from somewhere. Yeah. I want it in my ears and I want some control over it. And so I've been a little crazy to think, like, every device I have, I want some kind of headphone back so I can hear them.
Well, for me, the thing I love about the headphones, my hands are free. So if, like here, while we're doing this, I can, look up things or whatever I am. So it's the same thing. If I've got it, and I don't know about you, have you ever tried to pin a cell phone to your shoulder? So you can, that's just not going to work, Yeah. So that's the other advantage. But yeah, that's one of the first things. If I get a phone call, many times before I hit, answer, is I'm plugging in my headphones because if I'm not going to sit here at my desk, I'm going to get up and walk around. A lot of times I will do that while I'm walking. And again, I want my hands free to do whatever the heck I'm walking out of the room for.
I also purchased, so that Behringer audio interface, I think the one I got, I'm trying to figure out which one I have here, but I think it was $50. So not terribly expensive. I've also in the past purchased the PreSonus audio boxes, which are the blue boxes. I think they're $100 if you want to do them that way. USB driven, you can use software, or now I think they're just recognized by Windows or Mac if you want to do it that way. You're actually sponsored, or right now the School of Podcasting is sponsored by Focusrite, and you've got a box right near there. And
Focusrite, this is the 4i4, but yeah, I like the 2i2. Not that I don't like the 4i4, but I think for a person that's just doing, well, actually both Behringer and Focusrite have just a single input.
Yeah.
But if I was doing a podcast and I had a, co-host, I'd want to go 2i2, but no. And then when you get down to just a single input, because it's just you from home, yeah, those get much more affordable.
Well, and Focusrite's got this, they have the Scarlett Solo too, which is just the one input. And those, they have some kits actually where you can get a pair of headphones and all the cables that you need to be able to pull us off. I think at a minimum, I kind of first of all, I kind of like this setup rather than a microphone over here, because one of the right, you get this breathing
meter effect.
Right. YouTube's going to translate that by as applause. I don't know if you've ever turned on closed captioning on YouTube, but any noise is applause. So that's applause on YouTube. But you breathe, so you hear people breathing. With these kind of microphones, when you're not talking, right? If you're listening to the audio, I just move the mic away.
Right.
You can, which is really, really handy. Like if you need to do some things, you need to move, you got to grab something off, right? So again, a setup like this, a microphone, these ATR 2100s or the Samsung Q2Us, or those are really probably the two best on that, right? $65-$70. An arm is another $65, $50 to $60, depending on what you get. You can spend as much of $100. Plugging them into one of these devices, I think, is super handy. Like if I had to work from home, I'd still have this podcasting equipment, or I'd want to have a setup like that. Don't you think?
Yeah, it just, I was just thinking about this. I don't know how frequently it would happen, but if you're in sales and you fire up somebody and you're doing some sort of, call to, touch base with a customer, and you sound awesome and your competition sounds like they're in the bathroom, that just may be something that, it's subtle, it's not going to get you the deal, but it's like, it's just going to make you sound more pro.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest, when I do a call from home and I turn my video on and they see this, everybody goes, whoa, what are you, what are you? And I'm like, no, I'm at home. This is my podcast studio. And I think you're right. I think there's an element of kind of like, oh, okay, well, he's serious about his audio. And so I think really good sounding audio is a little more affordable than most people think. You're probably going to put $200 into it at a minimum. But I think at home workers, man, I just think there's some real benefits in it. Now you've got cans, headphones that are cans, and I am a earbud guy. Why have you, like, for me, earbuds just seem better because they're not on my head. But Dave, you've never given the earbuds things. You've always had cans.
I could.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to though. Like you choose to. You choose just to use those headphones.
That's a great question. I think they just, because they do sound a little better, maybe.
Yeah.
I think they block some of the sound out that might seep in, not by much though.
See, and these earbuds that I have actually encourage the sound. They're meant for safety when you're out running and those kinds of things. And so I don't get that closed down. Now, I think you get used to it, whatever you're doing, whether you have cans or whether you're using earbuds. You could use the Apple headphones. You can really use anything.
Right.
But it's key, right, that you get that sound coming in your ears and not back through the microphone.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, although some programs like Zoom and Skype, they do a decent job of trying to, because what happens if I didn't have headphones on right now, Jim's voice would come out of my speaker and then go right back into the microphone, which would then go back to Jim. So it creates this weird echo effect. And some programs do a somewhat decent job of detecting that and kind of filtering it out, but I would not rely on that all the time. And that's just another communication hurdle that you got to get over if everybody's got this weird half a second echo.
But I think it's really key, if you're going to go this route, that you do have some kind of ear. Yeah. You're using either regular or traditional headphones. And I find get some really comfortable ones. Like, make sure if you're going to have them on for an hour call, I've got some of those cheap $15 Sony ones. They're only better. They're just a little bit better than the ones that came with the Walkman, like 40 years ago. And they sit on your ears. And I find it gets uncomfortable after, about 20 minutes. You're kind of like, kind of rubbing your ears.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that you find something comfortable, but having good sound, being able to control the sound that's coming into your ears. So this is the other value of going through a USB interface as opposed to just going USB, is that you can control. I think you can control the sound coming. Like I can control your sound to me so much better than I could if it was just straight via USB. In other words, taking a USB mic like this, plugging it in, and then they do have mic outputs on the back of these, but man, I do not like it. Like, one, I want to hear what I sound like natively. So what am I sounding like to you? I think that's really, really important. And then two, I want to hear you back super clear. And I haven't always been super impressed by these microphones natively when you're running them via USB. It just hasn't worked well for me.
And for me, the Audio Technica ATR 2100, they put everything in one spot. So the volume knob and where you plug it in XLR, where you plug in, it's all in one spot. And you almost need like a set of tweezers to get in there and turn down the volume, where the Q2U makes it a little easier, but they're all, I'm with you. When you have a nice, either the Behringer or Focusrite, you got a nice volume knob and a headphone knob, and it just makes life a whole lot easier.
It gets it running at XLR, just makes it better. Ron in the chat room says he'll take cans over in-air any day. And I think that is one of those preference type things. You can go any way you want. I've always known you. In fact, when I see you live without headphones on, because every time I see you, I like, oh, you have ears. Like, wow, Dave Jackson had ears.
You know where it comes from? It's my days as a musician. When I was in the studio, they always had these kind of headphones. So
yeah. No, I get it. Emily in the chat room says, for those who have glasses, it's even harder to try to pretend. We were talking earlier about using video to make sure, right? She says it's harder to pretend that we're not checking Facebook or emails because the screen reflection you can see. I was on a group call one time, and the camera, it was in a conference room, and the camera was coming off the wall, and it's a wide angle camera. And I was sitting on the end where the camera was going down, and I thought I was kind of anonymous, but I didn't know that the camera could see my screen. Yeah. So I was on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the things that I do for my job. But at the end of the call, the gal that was on the other end, she's like, "You do realize I could see your screen the whole time." I'm like, well, good thing I was doing work.
Yeah, that's good. That's hilarious.
I do recommend for at-home workers. Like, I think we need, if we're going to do this, we need to step up our audio a little bit. I don't think it's okay. By the way, I think that stepped up audio could be the headphones that came with your phone. Like, I just did a podcast interview in Japan, and they were on an iPad with the headphones that came with the iPad. Mm-hmm. It actually sounded pretty good. So, you could get away with that. But I think if you're making calls a lot, man, I think it's good to get some kind of rig, something set up in your home office, something, or a really good set of headphones with a mic. Some of those noise canceling headphones. Oh, here's a good example. My Quiet Comfort 35s. They actually have noise canceling mics. So they're isolating your voice and any noise. They're kind of designed to be talked on in really loud environments. So not only, and I didn't realize this till I saw a video just recently, not only are they isolating the sound for you, they're canceling all the noise that's around you and only bringing your voice into that microphone. So that could also be, if you have a really good pair of, like those Quiet Comfort 35s, they're not cheap. I mean, they're $350. So, but could you do it off of that? That may have been, for me, the other night when I was in London, I probably should have thrown on those 35s instead of talking through the laptop mic. And I might have had, the only thing I don't like about that is I don't get my own voice sound back.
Yeah.
So you're like yelling, "Hey," when you can't hear yourself and you're talking too loud. So I do recommend getting, because you do it and I do it, and I just think it works better if we have better sound that way.
Well, especially something like that. If you're traveling for your job, and sometimes you're like, okay, I'm going to duck into the Starbucks and enjoy some Wi-Fi while you're doing that. But now you're trying to talk to somebody, and over the Frappuccino machine or whatever. Like that's not going to work.
Well, it's kind of key, and of course, some of those mics, the headset mics, they do have some noise canceling around them, as well as they just get closer to you, and so they're not picking up. They are very directional, and they're not picking up the sound of the coffee machine in Starbucks. So, very, very helpful, and I'd encourage folks to do it as well. Dave, I've been noticing on Ask the Podcast Coach, and let me just say before we get started, so Tajoski in the chat room, or Joe in the chat room, just sent me over here a Home Mini,
nice,
to try out. Now I'm an Amazon guy, and has been, and I've had folks on the show who have said they're Google fans, and I don't necessarily want to talk about the debate on what's better, but a couple times on Ask the Podcast Coach recently, you have brought your device up. I have mine plugged in, so we can hear it around here. I've got it muted right now. But I kind of wanted to ask you the question, when we think about our listening habits, because both you and I are incented to somehow get our podcasts out via these devices.
Mm-hmm.
Last week on Ask Podcast Coach, you demonstrated, and you were very, very kind to play Home Gadget Geeks when you did that. But you demonstrated that now Apple is supporting listening to podcasts on these devices. It had always, TuneIn had done it for me. You could say, hey, listen to Ask the Podcast Coach on TuneIn, and there's probably some other ones that do it as well. Now Apple's doing it. By the way, so do I have to get Apple to work, does that work natively, or do I have to attach something?
I think in the app, you can go in and say, use this for my default podcast app, and then you don't have to say on Apple Podcasts. Otherwise, you have to tell it, hey, woman in the tube, play Home Gadget Geeks on Apple Podcasts. I think you can configure that in the app so you don't have to. But what was funny is it worked flawlessly on Saturday morning.
It did.
And then I went to do it again for my other show, and it didn't work at all. And I was like, well, there you go. Like, maybe it's not quite as ready for prime time as I thought.
When I was surprised, I was just listening to that today on school podcasting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Dave, why didn't you cut that part out? Like, you could have easily have just redid it. However, I think it's some good integrity to say, on these devices, it doesn't always work well. By the way, let me say, Joe, thank you for sending this over. I appreciate a little Christmas gift from him. And so, Joe, thanks for sending those over. I have one for Mike Uyghur as well. By the way, Mike's out tonight doing Christmas things with the family, so we appreciate him. But Dave, how do you think, when you think about these smart speakers, do you think they're changing the way we listen to podcasts? In other words, do you think people are yet listening to a complete 15, 30, 45 an hour of a podcast on their smart speaker?
I know John Buchanan, who's an audio editor, he says he listens to podcasts on a smart speaker. He's the only person I know. I know right now at Libsyn, the stat is, I think it's like 0.02%. It's really low. And Jim, I came prepared. Are you ready for this? If you want me to share my screen, I actually did some research on this. And they said, this is from, the site comes up a lot, Statista, I guess is how you pronounce that. And they said in 2019, the top thing that people do with their smart speakers was ask it a question, which I thought was kind of like, well, duh. But listening to streaming music, I don't see, because I'm at
2?
Yeah, it's number 2.
Okay.
And for me, I listen to streaming music, like I listen to Spotify, Panda, but I have a pretty nice set of computer speakers and a subwoofer.
Yeah.
And I have the latest Echo that has the I forget the doubly whatever. It's about
half the size of the old one, and it's got some speakers built in.
And it sounds great. It's got some nice low end to it. The third thing, and I do this every day, multiple times, is check the weather.
Yeah.
Set an alarm is next after that. Set a timer for that. Listen to the radio. I don't know that I've ever listened to,
but you and I don't listen to the radio.
That's true. At the same point, yeah.
Right, we're not the average.
Then use a favorite skill. I don't know that I have a favorite skill or action on the Google unit. I used
are you using both, or are you using? Do you use Alexa?
I have one in my kitchen. I have a Google one, and the thing I love about the Google one is I can say, "What's the temperature outside?" and she will say that it is 24 degrees. If I ask the woman from Amazon, she will tell me the temperature, and then I think she gives me a whole bunch of other information. I'm like, no, I just need to know what the temperature is, and then she'll say, and she will now ask me, "Would you like to hear the weekend?" And I'm like, no, I just need to know if it's cold outside. And then play a game or answer trivia. That I know my niece has one, and she goes, "It's one of the best babysitters ever," because the kids just go crazy with it.
Tell a joke, tell me a story.
Yeah.
Right. Some of those kinds of things.
Yeah. Control a smart home device. That's what I use mine for.
Yeah.
All the time.
Well, and I think for this audience, Dave, I think that would go way up. Like our audience here on Home Gadget Geeks, it would go way up if you think about most of our folks, I think, control a lot. Chat room, you can let us know while we're talking about this. What do you use your smart speaker the most for? But yeah, I think that's a big usage. But
listen to news or sports, search for product info. See, for me, search for product info, that's a Google Home, because Amazon's not going to really help you much with that. She's going to say, she's going to get confused because she's not, I think the only thing she searches is Wikipedia. So like she can tell you like how old is Ted Nugent, but other than that, when
temperature of the sun, some of those kinds of facts, right?
Yeah.
That you want to do that way.
But I have seen other studies that have said that people that have a smart speaker do listen to more podcasts. So it's there. I do occasionally, if I'm in my living room, like when I decorated the tree, I played a bunch of Christmas music through it. But most of the time, again, I have a smartphone and I got my headphones in. So if I'm listening to Spotify or Pandora and I'm not in front of my computer, I'm listening through earbuds. And, so
we listen to, I'm gonna unbox this as we go. So that's
there we go.
Nice little thing there. Oh, look at that. And then this just pops open. So
nice.
Pretty easy packaging, right? On this. It's it's one of the charcoal ones. This is the mini, so just a small version of it. We actually listen. My wife and my daughter are big music fans, and so we actually here's a little box that's in there. We actually end up listening to a lot of music on it, and that seems to be a real common. There's real simple. There's a plug, USB mini on the back side there, and not much else in this box. A pretty minimalistic install. It's got on this piece, it has the USB, there's the charging port there, and no speaker out. So I guess I'm just going to use it as a regular speaker. I may have to mic it up on that. It's got a little button here, which I'm assuming a little on off button, right? On this side, where you can turn that on and off. What do you have from the Google device standpoint? What do you use?
I have one of those.
You got the same one?
Yeah, it's on top of my fridge.
And no place to plug this. I can't plug in speakers to this. I just have to.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So well, it'll go fine on the desk down here. The goal is to have it close by to me on that. But we listen to a ton of music. So my daughter and we stream a ton of music from Amazon. She and my wife do. That's kind of where they get their primary music source. I'm not in one place long enough, and maybe
that's it.
At the desk, I might. But see, when I'm here at the computer, I'm watching YouTube, and so if I'm going to watch or listen to a podcast, I'm just going to find it on YouTube and do it that way, as opposed to when I'm in the car, I'm using Overcast or whatever to listen to a podcast. It's just kind of listening habits. So I'm just not finding that, at least for me, that that podcast consumption is changing at all based on that.
I know for me, talking about listening to music, one of the things I like on the Amazon side, I don't know if you can do this on Google, I'm assuming you can, is you can take a bunch of devices. Like I have a setup that I can say, play this upstairs, and it'll play it'll play the one in my office, it'll play the one in the bedroom. It's like, no matter what room I'm on, and it's all playing the same thing. So I will on occasion play either music or something like that. I'll have Spotify or something going on, and that way if I'm cleaning or something and I'm going from room to room, it's there. So that comes in handy. And
I think with all of them, you can now hook them together. I think with both.
Oh, that'd be great.
Systems, and you can do a whole. I think now you can do a whole house kind of audio system that way. Drop in, I think, works on each of those. My wife is a Google Fi user, so my wife and all my boys do Google Fi, their phones. And they just sent out mini hubs or something. I need to take a look at what she got. But Joe sent this, and then we got one in the mail from them as all Fi users got a free one. And they just shipped them to the address that was on your account. Like it was they notified you and they were there like 2 days later. It was the craziest thing. But
wait, because I use Google Fi. I didn't get
a free one. You should, if you're a Google Fi user,
yeah,
they should have notified you and said you're getting because the boys got one and my wife got one. So we went from having 0 Google units in our house to 2.
Nice.
Which will actually be good because that'll put one on my desk and one up there, and I'll have Sarah. We'll kind of try. She uses the drop-in feature from time to time, and some of those pieces to get that done. A couple things. Joe in the chat room said he recently started using it to turn the TV off and on, and that's again another one of those things where you kind of think, really, the TV is right there in the remote, and it's like all of a sudden super convenient, right? To be able to get done.
What comes in handy for me, because I have an Amazon Fire TV, and it's weird, I have to press the button on the remote, which also turns on the TV, so it kind of wakes up the TV, but I'll set it down and then I'll tell her, hey, play Hulu or turn on Hulu, and she will literally through the Fire TV, start up Hulu while I'm walking into the kitchen. I get whatever it is I want to eat, and then from there, I just pick up the remote and I'm good to go. So,
do you feel like you have to say the exact right words, though? I think this is the next step in these. Is that you don't need to memorize, the exact phrase that has, because nothing is more frustrating than when you're not getting the right phrase.
Yeah, in some cases, because I know. I think the one day I said play Hulu and that did not work. And then the next day I said turn on or like play this through Hulu. There was some sort of phrase. It's not quite there yet. And, now I have to learn a new phrase. I actually switched from Hulu to YouTube TV because Hulu was going up about $10.
YouTube TV is pretty great.
It's
a pretty great service.
Yeah. The only thing I saw that was different is if you ask to watch, it's Christmas time now. If you want to watch Christmas Vacation on Hulu, you're going to get Christmas Vacation. If I do that on YouTube, I'm going to get a pre-recorded version from TBS. So, but
no commercials though.
No commercials. Right. Yeah. So, but
those services are a little bit different. Well, I mean, to come full circle back to as we think about
back to smart speakers,
smart speakers and changing our listening consumption. I think our listeners would, and you can let me know, Jim at theaverageguy.tv, but I think most of our listeners are still have not moved to the smart speaker for podcast listening. I think we're listening to it in situations where it's just not convenient to listen to a podcast that way. We're in the car. It is. I think, Dave, when we get full voice integration in the car, so like Amazon has I think they call it a CarPlay, or they're calling it, so maybe that was the Apple version of it. But we are still not, we're using our phones. And I don't think it's fully integrated in the car, or we're not to a spot where we're talking to these things in our car yet. I think it's taken us a while to get to the point where we're talking these things in our house. Moving it to the car has been a little awkward, and I think it'll get better. But how great would it be to get in the car and just say, hey, person, resume. And it would resume right where I picked up, and not necessarily have to use my phone. Well,
I know Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity to Podcast, when we're talking about having Apple Podcasts on Amazon, he said there is a way, and I saw in the app where you can log in with your Apple ID, and I'm assuming that somewhere then you can kind of have these sync up so that you can actually listen to something on a smart speaker,
right,
and then pick up your phone and pick up right where you left off.
That would be, now, that functionality, assuming you can get it all to work via voice. So you're in your car.
Yeah. Ooh, wouldn't that be great? That ask Siri to pick up.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't work. That right now that's not working very well. But that would be terribly convenient, and especially if I'm connected all throughout the house, and when I walk into a room, it resumes it in there, assuming like, hey, I'm going to play this. Because I know these things in a lot of cases they know where you're at. It would play it in each of the rooms I'm in. Then maybe all of a sudden that changes my consumption habits. I think with an audio podcast, we're assuming we can be mobile. And so I don't know. We've got some work to do. I think both you and I agree we're still a long way from the average user using these things to listen to podcasts. We don't have, as podcasters, I don't think we're to the point where we're talking about, they want us to, but I don't think we're to the point where we're advertising it that much. I think today phone is 99% of the consumption, don't you think?
Yeah,
in a lot of cases. Yeah. So
I have another thing I thought I'd share with you. I again, in kind of researching this is from voicebot.ai, and it just shows the jump in smart speaker. 2016, I guess this is 13 million. So that's 3 years ago. 13 million. Now we have 200, almost 206 million.
Well, they're giving them away, right?
Yeah, that is true. They really are.
You can during Christmas you can get them for $25 at or 20 at Best Buy or whatever. Yeah. Google just sent them out. They're not terribly expensive.
Yeah, and that always then makes you scratch your head and go, why? Why are
they want to spy on us? That's
why. Exactly. So
there's a lot of value in knowing what you're going to buy before you buy it.
But I saw that and I was like, man, I knew there was a big jump, but that's a huge jump. So
yeah. One of the, as we just shift topics one more time, as we think about the advent of audio processing. So all these topics kind of have the theme of audio in them tonight. So think about audio processing. You and I, and I've been podcasting about a decade. You're 15 years at this point. We have seen amazing changes in audio processing, just from the way we create it to the way we edit it to now. I think the way it's gonna be consumed. When we think about, Dave, I think there's some great stuff just on transcripts. So Otter.ai is a service I've been using. Google has a version of it. YouTube has a version of it. But the ability, I'm starting to see a big jump in accuracy. Now, we're still not all the way there yet. Apple and Google are both now automatically transcribing behind the scenes, which, by the way, I think they've been doing this for a while. I just think they're making it public now. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Not that hard. Like, transcription's not new, right? I think they've been doing it for a while. They're advertising now that they're doing it. But how do you, when you think about taking audio to print, because that's very useful in some cases, are you where are you using that, and how are you using that to kind of improve your experience?
I have a client that I audit. I edit their audio, but it's a really weird situation where I'm just looking for the main topics. I always ask them, I'm like, didn't you have bullet points like when you did this? And instead, they will have me run it through Otter.ai. They'll give me a transcript, and from there, it's a podcast where they just answer questions. So I basically just type in who, what, why, when, where, and find those words. And then I can find what questions were answered. I grab the questions and I say, in this episode, we talk about, and I grab those questions. So I use it in that way to kind of quickly see what was covered. I've heard of, I forget what event I went to, and somebody said they use the transcript for editing because you're like, wait, where was the part where we talked about such and such? And you could search for that because you talked about it, and you're like, oh, it's way down here at the 15-minute mark. Mm-hmm. So, and that's one where I never thought of using a transcript as an editing tool, but that could be really, really handy.
Manny has that tool. It's just the Podcast Smart Player. That's not what it's called. I have it. It's one of my plugins in WordPress.
Oh yeah.
But if I upload the transcripts with the blocks around them, it automatically then it sets that to, there's some short code that sets those to automatic spots in the audio based on the show notes that I put in, which is pretty cool. In fact, every single show, maybe for the last 6 months here on Home Gadget Geeks, I've been putting those transcripts. If you haven't checked out the show notes in a while, right? Every show now I do has the transcripts, and they're clickable from that. You can go down if you want to go to it, if search for a certain spot, find it, then just click on the timestamp button above it, and it'll automatically take you to the spot in the audio where that is. Super cool. You can only do that on, I shouldn't say only, but I use WordPress to do that.
Right.
So super cool. Same kind of idea, right? Search for it and then take me to the spot in the audio where we said that.
Yeah.
We're finding this actually very, very useful and very helpful. We're engaging with Amazon at Gallup. We're engaging with Amazon to do these services. I know Google's kind of doing it as well. This leads to an ethical question. So we're starting to see some services like Adobe's got something, and there's one, I think it's a Descript. Is that the name of it? That now is where you can go in and remove text and it updates the audio. Have you messed with that service?
I have not. I've heard about it. I downloaded it. I think you get X amount of time for free. Yeah. And it's always been like, hey, you know what? Maybe tomorrow I'll play with the script. And I've yet to get there yet to actually play with it.
Well, so think about this. Like, so you said, you said something tonight and I'm like, I want to take it out. That's pretty easy. I was talking to my Sammy's, who's been on the show before. We just had her on a couple shows ago. Mm-hmm. And there's an ethical problem because now they have enough where you can actually, and I heard an interview, somebody, was it your show or somebody else's? They were interviewing the Descript. Have you interviewed the Descript?
I have not. It was probably Harry Duran.
I think it was. Yeah. I think it was. Good call. And you're the other half of my brain, by the way. And so they were talking about they actually can reconstruct. So you could put words in and they can reconstruct it from all the bits of data that they have, but there's ethical concerns because now I can make you say things. How do you feel as a podcaster? How do you feel about reconstructing? So you and I have an interview. You have a lot of me. My audio cuts out during an interview, but it was really, really important and you knew what I said. How would you feel about having AI reconstruct me or what I said? How would you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a slippery slope because it all depends on how you're using it. So if Jim went to say my favorite ice cream is chocolate, and instead it came out that I know what he said, and I perfectly fine. But yeah, have you seen the fake Joe Rogan clip?
No.
Oh, there's a company that spent a lot of time and has this technology, and so it's this video, and it's like
they call this deep faking,
right? Deep fake, yeah. Mm-hmm. But and he's sitting there saying all sorts of outrageous things, and you're like, but it sounds like Joe Rogan. I was like, and that's when I went, that's because and it's only going to get better. And I was like, and so I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, that face has obviously been, but there's going to be a case where, when somebody goes, it wasn't me, I wasn't even there, and they can make it sound like you and look like you. I mean, the one guy was dead and he was in a movie. I mean, what's her name? It's coming out tomorrow.
I know.
Princess Leia's in the movie and she's dead. And I'm like, wait, huh?
The old one, not the young one that they reconstructed, right, but the old one, right? That she passed away, Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, but there was the guy in the Fast and Furious that like he died in the middle of the movie and they just CGI'd him. And I was like, wait, what? I'm like,
but so how handy would that be though, to be able to reconstruct?
It'd be great. Well, think about it, because if you had enough of this, instead of recording your podcast, you could just type it up. No more editing, because it's going to say it, again, because right now you can have the woman in the tube read a book to you. Yeah. You don't have to buy it on Audible. And it's one of those things like when you first hear the first 3 sentences, you're like, oh, I can't listen to anything like this. And then your ears kind of get used to it. And I've had her read a whole book to me in the past. And it's like, after a while, you're like, okay, it's one of those things where you kind of have to get over what it sounds like so you can concentrate on what's being said. But it's one of those things that's like, in the future, this could be interesting. But yeah, it for me, part of my brain, the geeky part of me goes, oh, cool. And then the other side of me goes, oh, this could cause all sorts of problems.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's an ethical dilemma. Michael Delaney says Paul Walker. It's, I think, who we were talking about from Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
That was in there. Yeah, in a movie, fairly controlled. And I think we kind of know it's not real. But what happens when that gets good enough that starts getting supplemented, and maybe it's happening already, as news coverage. And so we play that as news, right?
Well, did you see the thing where there was a kind of a fake news story going around, and they were insinuating that Nancy Pelosi had a few too many, and all they did was slow her down just a little bit. And I was like, oh, that one's kind of easy to figure out when you set them side by side. But there have already been, if you listen to the No Agenda show, they love to deconstruct stuff, and it's amazing when you hear a soundbite that is just scathing. You're like, I can't believe they said that. And then they'll go, oh, by the way, here's the full clip. And you're like, oh, well, wait, that's completely out of context. So with this new technology, you could just make things out of context.
Yeah. No, it's a sticky wicket, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of those areas where we have to really question, like, yes, we can, but should we? And I think I think it's going to happen, which makes me think we're going to have to kind of come up with some kind of technology that is an authenticator. So today, like, I have to authenticate if I'm logging into something, there has to be an authenticator to double authentication or whatever, right? I think we may have to get to a point where our audio print gets somehow authenticated, and you can say, no, run that against my voice print, and it will be like, this is a fake. Now, maybe that already exists. I don't know. But I think we're going to have to get to a point where we're going to have some kind of authentication of that's his actual voice. That's in it. Okay, think about it. We've been doing Photoshop stuff forever.
That's what I was going to say.
Right. And you got to have, now there are forensics that you can go against a file and tell exactly what's happened to it. Right. So maybe that's the technology that we have that runs against the file and says, no, this file's been pretty heavily altered. Or it's not authentic to the actual person. So I think we're gonna have to get to that.
But that's the thing. You have to bring in technology to figure it out, because to the ear and eye, have you seen the Netflix? There's a documentary called Don't F with Cats.
No.
It's a really, I don't know how I got sucked into it, because I'm like, what is this about? And it's about what turns out to be a killer. This guy starts killing cats and making videos of it on YouTube, and a bunch of people got outraged, and they basically did a bunch of police work. And that's why this brought up is the guy was kind of weird, and he was trying to make himself a celebrity. And so he took all these pictures showing how he was a world traveler and all this other stuff. And it turns out all these pictures of him next to his boat and everything else, it was just him playing with Photoshop. It
was all faked.
And they were all fake, and they look pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting documentary, because at the end of it, they do a little switcheroo, because this guy wanted fame. And they kind of point out how, like, this documentary is kind of making him famous. And
he got what he wished for.
Yeah,
right? Good or bad publicity is still publicity, right?
But it gets into a lot of stuff you're talking about, where they ran through, like, you can upload an image, and I forget the EFI. There's some sort of information that you can see where the person was, and even GPS coordinates. That's how they tracked him down in some cases. Is they would look at the photo and go, and he had gazillions, and there was one, and they're like, oh my gosh, he's in Canada.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think there's going to need to be some ways that we authenticate ourselves for some of these things where it matters. You and I on Home Gadget Geeks or Ask the Podcast Coach or whatever, you and I, we don't necessarily care right now. Like, but for public officials, for things that really matter. Yeah. Do we want people kind of, do we need some way? Do we need some two-factor authentication to say, hey, that's not me, and I can prove it, because and run some technology against it? I think we're gonna have to come up with that here in the future. Yeah, absolutely. Because think about campaigns in the future. They always, Jim Cullison, likes to put blah 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 and such, and they're like, and you watch it and you're like, holy cow, I can't believe that guy does this. Well, now they can say we have proof, and you're like, so yeah, it's gonna be. It's one of those things. It's like, well, as long as nobody uses it for evil, and you're like, yeah, that's not going to work. No, anything, right? Anything along those lines can be. It's like any contest can be gamed. We know that for sure. Yeah. Dave, one final thought, and I want to run by you. And I think as we think about YouTube and where they're going, they recently have released some. They've changed their terms of service to say, basically, if you're not making us money and we deem you unprofitable, we can remove you. And I'm starting, and I don't do this very often, but I'm going to start a conspiracy theory on this one, that they're getting ready to deactivate thousands of accounts that aren't monetizing, that are just sucking up bandwidth, because this thing that they do, right? They gave away free video to everybody, and then all of a sudden, Google starts looking at the bills and starts going, hey, like, wow, YouTube costs a lot of money, and yeah, we get ads off of it, but imagine if we started removing everybody like you and me,
right,
who's not profitable. I don't monetize any of my content. They don't run ads against it. I'm just using their service. I get several hundred to 1,000 to 10,000 downloads per video. That's just costing them, and they're not making any money off of me. Dave, I get a feeling that there's going to come a day when I think there's going to be a mass removal from YouTube. I would not be surprised if that happened. Where do we go? Like, if all of a sudden we can't get on YouTube, I mean, they are in effect a monopoly when we think about the space. Where do we go? What would you do if all of a sudden we couldn't do this on YouTube?
Yeah, the advantage of YouTube, where podcasting is kind of separate. You can go to all these different apps to consume all these different podcasts. If you want to consume YouTube, you are either going to the YouTube or the YouTube app. It's not like I'm going to some other third-party app to watch YouTube. It's all there now. You can embed videos and things like that. But the only other service, I had to think about this, there's Vimeo, but that's not free.
Not free anymore.
No. And either is Wistia is another one I use. And that's like $25 a month, so, and that's for a limited amount of storage. Right. So yeah, it will be interesting to see if somebody goes and gets a bunch of, seed money to start the new YouTube to see if they can reproduce it. But it's just another example. We've talked about this on Ask the Podcast Coach. Free hosting doesn't work because bandwidth isn't free. And when you're talking video, did you see the 60 Minutes with the CEO of YouTube?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it was on a couple weeks ago, and I forget the stat. It was something ridiculous, like 5,000 minutes of video every X amount of. It was just, and I just remember sitting there thinking, how are they doing that? Like, just I know hard drives are cheap, but I'm like I just picture guys all day running and stacking up more boxes and plugging it in, and I'm like, I know there's like somewhere there's a physical thing limit of that, and I'm like, how do you do that? So I would not be surprised, because when I heard Bandrew talking about it on Bandrew Says, and he said, he goes, if you read it, it's very vague, and it kind of gives them enough of a crack to go, oh, we can't really define whatever the phrase was, not commercial, blah blah blah, but it's a way to kind of go, oh well, yeah, we're removing you. And of course, I don't know if you've ever dealt with Google. There are times when they go, the great Oz has spoken. We've done with you. There's no recourse.
Be gone.
And you go, that's it. I'm not going to not pay you anymore. And you're like, what are you going to do? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. It worries me a little bit. I mean, it's kind of a perfect, like I said, I am not a big fan of conspiracy theories, but all the planets are lining up for this, where it'd be like, for those of us who are just using the platform and not monetizing it. And listen, I watch a bunch of a bunch of YouTubers who are making plenty of bank on YouTube right now. And many of them are supporting themselves through it. And there's already been one haircut. I mean, YouTube cut a couple years ago, cut a bunch of them way back. They do that again and start removing, again, folks like me who just use the platform. Now, is YouTube a huge part of my podcasting infrastructure? No, to be honest. Yeah, we do this. This would be the hardest thing to replace. When they removed Hangouts from us, we had to kind of scramble and think like, okay, what are we going to do? We're using StreamYard to get this done. Both you and I use this. I use it here, or you use it for Ask the Podcast Coach and other stuff that we do. That replaced the Google property that went away. If I couldn't stream live on YouTube anymore, I'd have to really kind of think like I could stream live on Spreaker, but that's audio only. Could.
There's always Twitch and
there you go. Yeah, Twitch and Mixer,
and Facebook.
Yeah, Mixer, Facebook. Yeah, I guess it's
But even Facebook, there. From what I heard, I haven't verified this yet, but it sounds like Facebook for a while had the ability to bring a guest on. Like you could do 2 people like we're doing right now, and they just straight up went, oh, never mind, and took it away. And I was like, ooh, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of, I don't know that I would make anything. I mean, I feel nervous now. I have a Facebook group for the School of Podcasting, and I'm kind of like, and there's a part of me, they had a community tool called Tribe that had a one-time fee at AppSumo, and I missed it. And there's a part of me that goes, you know, that would have been nice to have in my back pocket. So because eventually that, if somebody asked me, like, I don't think in 2020, but by 2025, groups aren't going to be free, because it's one area that Facebook has no control over. If we're going to throw out conspiracy theories, and I'm like, no ads in them. Yeah. And I forget what podcast I was listening to, and they listed all these things that Facebook used to do for free, and now you have to pay for. And I went, well, that only makes sense, you know, because everybody now like, oh, groups are the best thing. Start a group for your. And I was like, so
those times come, and maybe they're worth it. Like if YouTube said, so Pro over at Vimeo is $20 a month billed annually, and if they said, hey, it's 20, YouTube said, okay, you're gonna have to start paying. It's so valuable to me, I might actually start paying for it. I mean, I pay for Otter. I don't for so this network, my network, I pay for Otter, but I don't pay for StreamYard. At work, I don't pay for Otter, but I pay for StreamYard at work, because the services are more valuable to me based on what I'm doing. And so I will pay for them. I don't expect everything to be free, but I might fork out to, if YouTube did that and I couldn't find a viable solution to stream, I may be forced to get into that model.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if they started charging for hosting and streaming. Yeah, like what the pricing tier would be, and you know, it'll be interesting, because I noticed that in the 60 Minutes thing, they said that when a news story comes up and it's breaking, it's set up now to where they're going to start pushing the mainstream stories to the top. Like they don't want, you know, Joe Guy in his backyard, and it's just kind of like, and of course all those are monetizable and the whole 9 yards. And it just, so I think you got some teeth there in your conspiracy. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it wouldn't. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened.
Yeah.
The other thing we know, if we think about newspapers first and then radio and then television, they all went through some kind of consolidation, right? And they're really down to Eric K. Johnson is on your podcast, on your it's not rodeo podcast. What's Eric do with you?
Show.
The review show. And he's in the radio business, and they're like, all the radio stations in America are owned like by 7 companies now.
Yeah.
Right. They've gone through consolidation. TV has long been consolidated. It wouldn't surprise me. You know, I've always told people podcasting is great because it goes down to the infinite niche, like one person or even 0 scalably. So I could do this for almost nothing and reach a very small audience, and it's still worth it. If I tried to reach that audience through newspaper or radio or television, it wouldn't be cost effective, right? But you can do that in podcasting. But YouTube's gonna have a model eventually where they're ad driven. It makes sense for them to prioritize NBC going live versus me going live, right? It makes sense. And I'm not monetized. I don't have the monetization turned on. So I've always kind of said podcasting in general, or YouTubing in general, is kind of anti-consolidation. It just doesn't work that way because you can have so many people doing it at a low price point. But maybe the platforms themselves will consolidate. In other words, they'll force the best, because it's in YouTube's best interest to get the best content to the top. So you could still be there, but nobody's going to see you, you know, from a platform standpoint.
Do you know some of the ads? It's like you can skip this ad in 5 seconds, and I almost always skip it. I'm assuming that is then not a paid ad.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, how many of these are like they have to pay for, or they're getting income for.
Yeah, but there's an ad where there's a guy who's like, hey, don't you know, if you don't like gadgets, skip this. Have you seen that one? And it's all about a charger, and in 5 seconds he shows the charger. And I don't care if I've only heard that ad. I mean, if I only get 5 seconds of that ad, I know what that charger is. Like, The 5 seconds that I get over and over and over and over are actually effective advertising. So
it's a good move.
You kind of think, it's only 5 seconds, but think about those ads that you've seen. An ad's job isn't necessarily to sell you in the moment. It's to plant a seed in your brain that when that kind of things come up, you're like, oh yeah, maybe I had to look into that battery thing that guy was selling on YouTube. It's probably worth a look or whatever. I get a lot of the St. Jude's ads now. I don't know if you've seen those, right? Braxton has brain cancer. And you're like, oh, this is terrible. Like, I got to watch this.
Well, the thing that's weird with YouTube TV is, speaking of ads, is they must have a bunch of like spots, like, hey, if there's nothing else, and it's the more you know. Remember that when it's like,
oh yeah, like
hey, NBC. And it's all these
public service announcements.
Yeah, and it's like, bullying is bad. You shouldn't talk to people like that. The more you know. And then they'll go to another one, and here it's the guy from that NBC show. You know what? Carrots are good for you. The more you know. They're all like 10 seconds long, and I'm like, did they run out of ads? Why am I watching all this public service stuff?
I know. Well, it's a weird world. And I just think, as we think about the consumption of this, whether it's us doing it tonight, and by the way, that's actually really helpful to think through. As I was thinking about this topic earlier today, I was like, oh man, I'm screwed. And then no, Twitch, Mixer, Facebook, right? Facebook, right? There are Periscope on Twitter, right?
Mixer's the Microsoft one, right?
Yeah. Mixer's the Microsoft one. And works pretty well.
You know?
Well, how good would that be for Twitch or for Mixer if all of a sudden YouTube's like, nope, if you're not monetizing, or we deem you what was the word they used? Unprofitable. That's not really what they said, but they used a word.
Unmonetizable?
No, there was another term they used. Anyways,
was it commercially
viable? Commercially viable. Like that is big open speak, I think, for like, hey, if you're not making us money, you're out.
Has Amazon ever dabbled in video?
You can do video stuff through S3, but you're paying for the bandwidth and the storage, and it just has never really worked for them. Yeah, I could just see YouTube consolidating and only taking the very best. And it would be kind of like Lipson saying, you know what, we're only going to do the Joe Rogan show, like name the top 25 podcasts and then say that's all we're streaming. And I'm sorry if you're not getting 25,000 downloads per episode, you can't be on our platform. They would never do that. That's not in their business model. But I kind of feel like YouTube's heading that direction. So it'd be interesting to see where they go in 2020.
Watch,
and you were right. YouTube, once you're gone, you're gone. There's very little appeal. Mm-hmm. They're kind of the dictators of video right now, and they've always kind of been. So Dave never surprises me when we get together. We always have an hour and some change of talking to do. Thanks for saying yes at the last minute, by the way. I literally gave you about 3 hours notice today. I was like, hey, I haven't had you on in a while. I've got an opening, a last minute cancellation. Can you just join me? Because I know we could do this at the drop of a hat, and we do this so often. If you're listening and you've heard, this is the first time you've heard Dave Jackson. Dave hosts School of Podcasting, which if you're a podcaster is a great podcast. I listen to it every week. It's my Monday morning podcast because you publish faithfully every Sunday night, I think midnight or whatever it is.
Sometimes a little late, but I publish before I go to bed Sunday.
We also do Ask the Podcast. I mentioned that earlier. We also do Ask the Podcast Coach at askthepodcastcoach.com together on Saturday mornings. That's way more fun live than it is on the recorded side. The recorded side, good. We get good numbers there, but it's really fun to have. I don't know. We probably have 30 in the chat room, I think, on Saturday mornings. More popular than this show off live anyways, although I do appreciate everyone who came out tonight to join us live. But if you want to catch up with us that way, or you get more of Dave Jackson, we spend Saturday mornings is really kind of an open tech. I mean, we talk about podcasting, but I think we talk a lot about some of the topics that we've talked about here. So if you like that, you might like Ask the Podcast Coach. Join us on Saturday mornings to do that as well. Dave, thanks for joining me tonight. Can you hang out for just a few minutes?
Oh, absolutely.
As I kind of wrap this thing up. Nope, good to have you. Just a couple reminders before we go. One, if you do want to support us on Patreon, just head out to theaverageguy.com HGG427.tv/Patreon, and you can do that. We have $5 plans that are out there if you want to do that. By the way, you'll get, if you see it up here, you'll get a smaller, let's see, this way, right there. You get a smaller version of this coin that Ron made for us, shipped directly from Canada. So they apologize to you when you get them. They're available for you on the $5 plan. Just let me know. I'll ship them to you pretty much anywhere, but the United States is better because it's a little bit cheaper. That's for the $5 plan on Patreon. You can do that as well. If you want to join us in the Discord group, theaverageguy.tv/Discord, contact the show, Jim@theaverageguy.tv if you want to do that. I put some posts out. In fact, I just did one on the site called 4 Gadgets That Are Using AI. And so if you're interested in doing that, I do get some guest bloggers who contact me, Dave. We get this all the time in the business we're in. We're like, hey, one, it's, you've got a link that I want to replace. You probably get 1,000 of those, right? On your blog. If you're on a blog, you've gotten dozens of these requests.
Yeah.
But lately, I've kind of been able to turn some of these requests into some really good content. I'm just like, oh, no, I'm not going to change the link. But if you want to write a post for me, I'm going to strip all the links out of it. But that's great. I could use some content. I had somebody contact me and said, I want to write about gadgets and AI. So 4 gadgets that are using AI available out there. If you want to check it out today, theaverageguy.tv is available there. If you, it's in a very interesting, not totally in depth, but some things like a little robot dog that I didn't even know existed. And I'm like, oh, this dog kind of learns your habits and some of the things you're doing and like follows you around. It's pretty cool. Check it out, theaverageguy.tv if you want to do that. Also, don't forget theaverageguy.tv, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. Dave's a new customer out there as well, which is, well, not yet. Have you moved?
Customer. No, we moved. And it was funny because I went to pingdom.com and it measured how quickly my site loads. And I showed it to Christian. He's like, hey, do I have permission to do some things on your site? I'm like, yeah, as long as it's wicked fast.
Yeah.
That guy's a wizard. I was like, wow. And it's saving me $25 a month.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, pretty great. I was talking
with a happy customer.
I was talking to a podcaster this morning who was just getting started, and I said, hey, you can do it for $10. And he was like, for everything? I'm like, yeah, for everything. And so maplegrovepartners.com, plans start at 10. If you just think of starting a website, Christian does a bang up job, and he just upgraded and it's got a bunch more bandwidth now to take on some new customers. So if you're interested, check it out, maplegrovepartners.com. Don't forget, you can download us and listen to us on our app. HomeGadgetGeeks.com is that Android, iPhone. That app is free because of our Patreon subscribers. So we appreciate that as well. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. The guys from Life Door will be back, or Joel, the guy. He'll be back February 12th. So he's supposed to be on tonight. He'll be back February 12th. We have him coming up and are looking forward to doing that. Some great shows ahead as well. Of course, next week it's Christmas. So not podcasting. I mean, it's not. It's Christmas. It's the day after. It's Boxing Day. But I'm not going to podcast next week. And then after that, Paul Braren is back. Well, Mike is coming back on, but Paul Braren is back. I got a guest who's coming in to talk. His name is Kevin, and he's going to talk about sports tech. Dwayne Robinson is going to come finish the show that he started, and I interrupted him, and we went on an hour-long conversation about something that we hadn't planned. He'll be back to talk about what was planned. Jay Madison is coming back to talk, and then we'll have 2 weeks in a row of some hardcore tech. And when we talk about that, I mean like computer gear. You're going to want to come on. Jay Madison's coming on to talk gear, and then Ryan is coming back to talk. He'll be live from just coming back from CES, and he'll have all the CES coverage. So if you like the gear, tech, gadget, hardcore stuff that we do, you're going to want to catch us in early February as well. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. We'll be back with more. With that, we'll say goodnight, everybody. All right. Dave, thanks we'll do a little post show, just kind of like we do on, if you can hang around for
absolutely
a few more minutes. Ron asked if I need more, although I'm supposed to put this out on Patreon, but most times I don't. Ron asked if I need more of those coins, which is super cool. Ron, I don't. I still have 2 left, so I'll let you know if I need more. But so thanks for being willing to make those for me. He 3D prints those. And then Chris says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Chris.
I see in the chat room, the bubble says here, Patreon is a possible integration as well for SY. What is SY?
StreamYard.
Oh, that's interesting.
Can I stream to Patreon on? Is that
that would be interesting?
Is that one of the destinations? Maybe through a repurpose? No.
The thing that I hate the thing I hate about Patreon is they're very finicky on, like, audio is a piece of cake. You just upload audio and they host it for you. But if you have your video hosted someplace else, it seems like they're very, like, unless it's YouTube, I'm like, because I tried to put a Wistia link there once and they're like, nope, I don't understand what that means. And I'm like, really? And it'd be great if they could, like, if I could post a file on Libsyn or Blueberry or wherever and post it in there. And it's like, nope, you got to just upload the audio. And I'm like, So,
you know, YouTube going away, just back to that conversation real quick, would suck on the Gallup side. Like, we have so much out there and moving. I bet I have 800 pieces of content out there. Ooh. And could you think about, like, well, one, I'm not sure I have it backed up anywhere else, just to be honest.
Ooh, like, that's true. I'm same thing.
Yeah. And then two, like, if it just went away. And then three, like, having to move all that and re-index it and find a home for it. And, you know, that may be worth looking into. On the StreamYard side, just standard out of the box, Facebook page, Facebook group, Facebook profile. So you could stream into any of those. LinkedIn page, LinkedIn profile. So that may not.
I didn't know that.
That may not be a bad place. LinkedIn's Microsoft and they're being really friendly. So LinkedIn could be, now they don't have a YouTube like page and that's only tied to LinkedIn. So, you know, I don't know. YouTube channel, that's the other one. And then Periscope, which is Twitter. So we could do that. Twitch, then Restream.io, right? They've got, they have a bunch that you can, let's do Restream.io, and then a custom RTMP, whatever that might be. Let's log in at Restream.
Oh, they have a ton.
Because
I was doing that for a while where it would send it to YouTube and Facebook and a whole bunch, and Twitch, I think, is how I did that the one day. I went to Restream to go to those three things, and I finally just decided I'm way too ADD for that. I can't take it.
It's tough to keep up with.
And there was a weird thing where not every chat room could see, like, Facebook could see the chat from YouTube, but YouTube couldn't see the chat from Facebook. So it was a weird thing where we were all literally not on the same page. And I got to quit doing that. I've been told that when people say literally you couldn't do that, that's actually the wrong way to use. It should be actually they couldn't do it. Or somebody keeps saying that I'm using the word literally. First of all, I need to learn how to say it.
Literally, you're using the word literally wrong.
Yeah. So
yeah, screw them. It's only the English language.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Shut up.
Well, Restream will let you go. So they have a free plan, 30 streaming platforms, 1 channel per platform. They have a paid plan.
I was using their free plan and still got it to go to a bunch of places.
Well, it says 30 plus streaming platforms.
Yeah.
So there's, I guess the good news on this YouTube thing is that there are options. It would much like when Hangouts were going away. One, I didn't believe. I honestly did not believe it was actually going away. Like I was for the longest time, like they're not going to take it. There's no way. And sure enough, it disappeared. And thank God StreamYard was around, which has really been the best. I mean, God, these guys are great. They are doing so much great stuff here.
The only other one I know of is BeLive.tv. I looked at that one for a while.
Yeah. This is just these guys have done it so right. Like I cannot. Someone should do a case study on StreamYard, and like for whatever reason they don't get flamed in the community. They continue to add value where they need to. The community updates, what do they call them? They call them I almost said Tupperware party, but that's not the right word. What do they call that thing? What's it called when a house? What do they do? It's Sunday, now that I've planted a seed of doubt.
Is it viewing party?
What do they call that thing? Chat room, help us out. What do they? Oh, town hall. There it is. Thank you, Chris Nessie got it. Thanks, Chris. So the town halls are done really, really well. It's hard to believe it's just those two guys. They got to have some other paid developers that just not on there. But the stuff just works. I mean, and the new pieces have been even cooler.
Yeah.
Some of
I like the little ticker tape thingies.
Yeah.
I like those.
Can you do that on the free plan?
I don't know. It's under banner, and then
brand banner.
And then the ones at the bottom are.
You have the paid plan, right?
Yeah.
And I just have. Okay, so that's the Hello World, and then this is the post show we can throw up here. I must not have. Oh, scroll across the bottom.
Yeah.
This is a scrolling banner. And I noticed you use that. Wow, that's available on.
There you go.
Wow, look at that. You use that Saturday on Ask Podcast Coach. Did you get any feedback on it? Does it annoy people?
Didn't get any feedback. Wasn't sure.
But they let you know if if people didn't like it. I don't know. Chris Nessie says it's dope. Chat room, what do you think? I have a really lame message here, but if I left this rolling the whole show, would that be because you left it rolling the whole show, right?
But I changed it. There were 3 of them. Oh. One was askthepodcastcoach.com/join. One was become a patron, and then the third one was tweet out. I think that we're live. I had 3, and it was kind of cool because I would just switch from one to the other, and there was this nice little fade. Like one would fade out as the other one faded in. It was a really nice little effect.
Yeah, and it's different than I thought it would replace this. This is the post show thing.
Yeah.
Great idea in the chat room. Chris says here. Let me go back to comments. Chris says he'd put the awesome supporters in there during the show.
That's actually what I thought about doing instead of having that segment and taking time, just like anybody that's either have the segment for the people that are doing 20, and then if you're like 10, you get in the scrolling thing. And I'm not sure, or maybe just put the 20 under there, and then I don't have to do the segment. Not that I don't want to do the segment, but
the 20 segment's pretty fast, right?
Yeah,
that's just 12.
But I thought about, if we put all the supporters in that thing, that would be a rather long list. I'm not sure what the limit is, but that was me when I saw that. I'm like, supporters. Somehow I'm going to have to work.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who and how many or whatever, but I was like, maybe I do a random selection of 10 people and put them in the ticker every week.
I'm
trying to figure out. It's like, and then the other thing is, of course, you don't want to be lazy, but I'm like, okay, we need to come up with a cool idea that doesn't require, 45 minutes of prep time to redo it or whatever. But I just, that's me. When I saw that, I'm like, that's an awesome supporter thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good idea. Ron says it's cool, but you need to add stuff to it. So I just threw in, it's a scrolling banner. I like your idea of having them kind of built up.
I thought about what I'm doing is making 3 tickers. Like here's the $20 banner. Here's the $10 banner. Here's the $5 ticker. And if I do one for the $1 ones or not, or whatever, but then just occasionally just, put the $21 and it'd be the smaller the amount, the later in the show it is. So that it's, in theory, less likely to be seen. So the more you donate, the quicker I don't know. It's I thought about that. It's one of those things that I'll probably test and then go, all right, let's see how that works.
Let me ask this, regular listeners. So if you're a regular listener to Home Gadget Geeks and you're out in the chat room tonight, there's just a few of you left. If I put Patreon subscribers, and I have 20 of them, if I put them on scrolling on the bottom, would that be interesting to you guys or not? Just kind of thinking about our regular. I may not have enough to get a valid sample, but
here's my thought. My thought on that is if you watch most news channels like CNN and some of the other ones, they have this going on all the time.
I know.
So I think we might be somewhat used to it, or at least we're willing to tolerate it. I don't know. For me, it doesn't bother me because even here, I'm looking at you. It's kind of there. And that's kind of what's cool about it. You look down, you go, oh, it's a scrolling banner. And then I don't look at it. And then it's just kind of, it's not really drawing my attention. But when I look down, whatever I see is whatever I see. And it kind of goes back to your 5-second ad again. It's not hitting me over the head. But if I saw somebody's website go through enough times and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. and it's a YouTube video, so it's going to be there forever. So,
oh yeah, that's true. It's embedded in there for sure. Chris says, chat room, just lead with the phrase "thank you." I want to thank our subscribers. They're scrolling down below, or something, or you could even write that in. Chris or Michael says you may even be able to change the dollars of the text.
Colors? I don't think you can, but I thought about that. Like, thank you to our $20 supporters.
Oh, colors. That's what he meant to say.
Yeah. And then, have that go on, and then just have it there, and then, turn it off for a few seconds, and then, all right, and then have it say, thank you to our $10 supporters, such and such and such and such. So,
yeah. No, it's interesting. Typically I barely use the chat feature just because we're we're at 6 to 10. There's 8 watching right now. So I get between 5 and 10 live on Thursdays, and I bring topics in from time to time, but I hadn't thought about using the banners scrolling that way. He's going to come Saturday. Chris says he's coming Saturday with a big topic. All right.
We'll have the Christmas music ready for you.
Hopefully it'll be super negative if you're going to play that music, because to overcome the cheesiness of that music, you're going to need a really negative topic.
It's not what I thought it was.
Man, that goes forever.
It does. So.
I do think they'll continue to add for the scrolling. They'll continue to add options. Options equal confusion. So you don't want to.
That's the thing. If you add too much stuff, because I need to go in and clean it up, because I just log in and I realize that I can now set up different branding for, if at least I can on the paid version. Like I could have branding for Podcast Review Show, branding for Ask the Podcast Coach. Right now, everything's kind of under one account, and I could basically set that up and have different colors and things like that.
I do. Yeah, you can set the folders for this. I didn't realize they had put folders in there.
Yeah.
This is a scrolling banner. It is cool that it makes its way over to YouTube. I mean, this is sharp. This was easy to do. And
that's what I loved about it too. It's like they made a video like on how to use it. I'm like, okay, that's nice. And I appreciate that, because there are companies that I just joined. It's a cool extension called Momentum. And what it does is you put in like the one thing you want to get done for the day. And every time you start a new tab in your browser, it's like, it shows you the time. It's like, welcome, Dave. And then whatever the heck I'm supposed to be focused on. I was like, that's kind of cool. And then if you pay, you can tie it in. Like I use Todoist as my to-do list. So I can tie it into that and all this other stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to try a month of the premium. It's like $3 a month. I'm like, I'm going to try this. There's absolutely zero video. And I'm always amazed at this, how many software companies do not make videos of how to use their software. But once I finally found it, they had a support page. And I'm like, I would have loved to just watch a quick 2-minute video on this. I'm like,
So at Gallup, we launched this new platform. It didn't go very well. And I mean, it was okay, but we realized we need to do that and make more instructional videos. And so I'm actually leading a team to use StreamYard to create these 5 second, not even that, 30 second to a minute videos. We do a pilot on Monday. So we're going to try it right before Christmas, be like, okay, how is this going to work and how can we make it efficient? And what I'm hoping is to make 5 or 6 a week. And in a couple months, we'll have the whole thing covered. And then we'll have a process that helps us create them fast. So we have a problem. We're getting a lot of calls. This would be the goal. We have a problem that's getting a lot of calls to client support. They could quickly say, all right, here's a video we need right now. And I could put a team together in an hour, have it recorded and published that afternoon to meet the problem. That's kind of the goal. We want to get to that point where we're doing it in 24 hours.
Yeah. I have a couple that I made for Libsyn, and we use a tool called Droppler, DROPPLR, because of course E's are evil. And so one of them is my links aren't showing in Apple Podcasts. And so I have a video that explains, depending on where you're looking in Apple Podcasts, whether it's browse or search, which is kind of the Apple listing. And then you have the library, which is for the subscriber. If you listen closely, you can hear the sound of Steve Jobs rolling in his grave, but you have to be subscribed for your links and your formatting to appear. And I just said, I'm tired of trying to explain this via text. I just made a video that's very generic. It's like, hey, it's Dave from Libsyn. Let me show you this so I can send it to anybody.
Yeah.
And then I used the feed as the example of like, here, look, this looks ugly and this doesn't. And having those videos, number one, companies love, and at least I thought it was just me. If it's, I don't know, I guess because when we see a big tutorial and it's, half a page long, but if you can show me how to do it, it seems to go over gangbusters.
Google does this actually really well, except the video part. So their written instructions are really broken down almost too small. Like you're like, okay, you could have included a few more instructions on that page, but their written instructions are done really, really well. So I think we would like to mimic that. And then actually the short videos, I kind of was inspired by the way you create those quick support videos. Hey, this is Dave. Let me show you how to do this. And you do some things and some stuff shows up and little circles and And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we need. And then we can take them down as fast as we put them up because we spent 10 minutes making the damn thing.
What freaks people out is if I make one and I go, hey, Jim, it's Dave. Let me show you how to do that. So that people know it's not that people are like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I'm like, it took 45 seconds. It would take me a minute and a half to type it up.
Yeah. No, right on. You can do it. You're good at that. Last question, and then we'll let our live audience go. Ron wants to know if we're going to make a special Christmas Ask the Podcast Coach on Saturday. I think should we do something? Ugly sweater,
21
red.
Hey, there's that music. It's no.
I'll have to wear red. I will definitely, maybe even a Santa hat.
I'll have to go see. I used to have a Santa hat, and I did not see it when I got all the Christmas direction because it's hard because my noggin is huge, and I'm not even sure where one would go to buy a Santa hat. Walmart. I used to go to the mall and
go to Walmart. They'd have Walmart, I'm sure. Yeah. It's they probably stopped carrying them. They're already putting Easter stuff out at Walmart, so you got to be you got to be careful there.
Because I've got a Target right up the street. I'll try Target. If that doesn't work, I'll go to.
We have a bunch. I'll just have to remind. So Saturday morning, Ron. So if you show up Saturday morning, not only is Chris bringing a big announcement, which we're excited about, but we'll be in Christmas colors. I might even do it. I might even try to find a scarf or something to. It's a little hot down here.
Yeah,
scarf on. If you're listening live, hey, thanks for everybody for Saturday morning, folks. Did you tweet that you were coming on?
I did right when we went live. I put it on Facebook. I'm like, hey, it's me and Jim live, and I did say on Home Gadget Geeks. So I didn't.
Cool. No, I think they enjoyed seeing us together in a format that wasn't, although it was a lot like Ask the Podcast Coach, but for Chris and for Emily, who normally, and Ron comes out and joins us sometimes on Saturday morning. Thanks, guys, for coming out. A Beauty Bubble was out there as well. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. And there's a few others who didn't jump in the chat room, but that's okay. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Everybody have a great Christmas/holiday season, whatever that means to you. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Hang tight, Dave.